Good evening, Australia. Welcome to Psychic TV International Thursday night's live show. It's great to have your company tonight. Do say hello so we know that someone out there is at least watching us. I know you're there. I know you're loving us tonight. But thank you for joining us tonight. Please like and share this page if you can, as always. And just keeping in mind too that we don't do psychic readings tonight. Hi, Andrew. Good to see you there. First one commenting. So yes, for those that might be unfamiliar, we don't do psychic readings tonight. That is for Harry T on a Saturday night show, but we do welcome any spiritual related type questions that you might want to have. So we have the beautiful, gorgeous genie in the bottle herself, Terri, joining us tonight as always. So we're going to have a bit of a chat. We're going to kind of pick up, it's going to be a bit of a variety style type show tonight. So we're going to have just a couple of random different topics that we're going to talk about. We're going to kind of pick up from where we left off. A few weeks ago, we had Terri jump on last minute to fill in for another psychic, and we started talking about the change of after coming from a pandemic, the spiritual change that we go through, and Terri started talking about spirituality and sport that I kind of want to pick her brain about a little bit more about that, and the tools that we use as well. So we're kind of jumping around tonight. So there's definitely a lot of areas that might pique some interest in you that you can definitely ask some questions around, you know, what type of tools you use if you are a spiritual, if you're someone who's interested in, you know, learning or kind of gaining some experience, what sort of tools or cards or things like that. You know, basically we're just going to go into detail and just sort of just talk. It's what we do best. Hi Beth, hi Jen, good to see you. So if you are there, please do like and share. We want to reach as many people as we possibly can, as always. But it's all about interaction tonight. So it's all about, you know, getting to our psychic, getting to know areas that you might be interested in that you don't normally get to ask. This is the perfect night to be able to do that. So if you do have any questions that aren't psychic related, as in like personal psychic questions, definitely ask them in the thread. Of course, if you do want a psychic reading, you can go to psychictvinternational.com. We have Judith Sky, who's currently on a call on pin 9125, Amazing Grace on 9888, Blessed Beth, who's currently watching, hi Beth, 9150, Mystical L on pin 9151, and Nellie Norm Baker on pin 9810. Of course, the fun is here. We are having a little, I'm just going to pre-warn you all now, there are some technical issues going on in the background. The gremlins are definitely excited to chat. Monday. So we're on day 4 now. I completely lost internet access in the area where I live. The modem has completely blown, and it's taken a few days for the tech guy to come out, and that's hopefully coming tomorrow. But anyway, the reason I say that is because I am streaming from my I'm hotspotting from my mobile phone, so anything's possible at this stage. So hopefully we stay connected, and we'll just kind of run with it. But definitely, yeah, do say hello, get involved. It is interactive, so ask your questions, you know, get the conversation going so we can sort of get, you know, get involved, basically. But I'm going to bring our guest of honor onto the stage, if my computer allows me to. Here, please welcome Terri. Yes, that works.
Hello, everyone.
How are you going?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, good. It's just been one of those nights. I think we're both having tech stuff going on.
A little bit. I'm in a different location in the house, so this is all brand new stuff. I can see I have a halo on me tonight, so I'm flaring. If my halo's flaring at anyone, just let us know.
Yeah, I love that. Hi, Kelly Cal. Good to see you there in the thread. So I was wanting to, as I was sort of saying before, I kind of want to pick up where we kind of left off, but I don't kind of quite exactly remember, you know, where we left off. So let's sort of just do a quick reminder. We were talking about when a pandemic happens, that there's change in spirituality. People tend to turn to, you know, the spiritual stuff a little bit more because we're talking about how, you know, we can get direct answers and things like that as opposed to the big man upstairs or whatever it is that you call it. So why don't you just remind everyone just a little bit about what you mean by that?
I was studying for a masterclass that I was giving. I was studying some of the history of spirituality and not just looking at, you know, the history of tarot cards or whatever. But one of the really interesting things I found was that people turned to non-religious spirituality more when there were huge global upheavals. So it was particularly noticed, I guess, first off after the American Civil War, where countryman was fighting countrymen, and their gods clearly weren't saving the people that they wanted, and then it was noticed again, and really predominantly after the end of the First World War, when the first great global pandemic of our times happened. And it occurred pretty much because these people coming from all these disparate places all over the world, at a level which had never happened before. So there we have these huge global influences. We had the pandemic hit, and then people's sons, their husbands, their daughters, fathers, mothers, many of the men folk didn't come back from the wars. And people, their gods were failing them. And most people it was a hugely Christian, I guess, a nation back in those days, particularly Australia. But they had to turn to something more, or something that they could get an answer from, because they're, the great, fellow in the sky, whoever he is, your mate in the sky, was failing them. So there were huge upturns in taking up of spirituality after that, as we know it, or as it was emerging. And then again, after our pandemic, the same sort of thing happened. There was a huge amount of people turning out and heading towards the spirituality, or modern spirituality. So, people were looking for an alternative. And I guess in our society, we're less and less, God-fearing as we get on. So those changes have been really, I guess, really strong. So where we are now is a really strong place in the history of our spirituality. So people are much more in the mainstream, are listening, and they're I guess you could call it worshipping their own spirituality, and discovering things that otherwise they probably wouldn't have before the pandemic. So interesting stuff.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I think too, there's obviously been a lot of change, just constant. And I think, acceptance. And I think, there's a lot more happening, in a sense, like not just with the spirituality sort of stuff, but also pardon the pun, but people are taking less shit on, kind of thing, as in regards to they're not putting up with it as much, like There was the Me Too movement, there was this movement, there's that movement. There's more protests, there's more, but then there's also more sensitivity to a lot of people as well. Like there's a lot of things that we can't say. There's a lot of branding that's also now being changed because of like certain cheese brands and lolly brands have recently changed names, not to say that's all connected, but it kind of is in a way. Like we're kind of really are shifting as a whole. And you're right in a sense that people are kind of becoming more free-spirited and free in that sense, and it's almost like we have more of a voice, and we're using it more now.
Well, we're also exploring the spirituality much more, but this isn't a new phenomenon either. This has been ongoing, but a lot of people wouldn't know the sort of things that had happened before, and the buy-in of really famous people, especially early in the 20th century. It was quite extraordinary, because again, after the wars, there was a huge uptake, and many of the movies you see, and we touched on this briefly, and it was also around the time that Carter discovered Tutankhamun's tomb, so the Art Deco period. So there was a lot of letting loose of a lot of stuff. So it was seances became really prevalent back then, and some of the top, in fact, the top author of the day, who was, oh my God, his name's just left me. Come on. Arthur Conan Doyle. Everybody know the Sherlock Holmes books? Arthur Conan Doyle was the author and the preeminent author of his day. And he was a huge believer in spirituality, but in like a lot of the crazy stuff as well, because it really hadn't been I guess, brought to the surface. So they believed in apport mediums, and apport mediums were those who could bring objects through walls and through countries to the stage that they were working on. And purportedly somebody apported a shark, and somebody else brought jewels from some ancient temple. So there was a lot of this hokum going on. But, he was such a big believer in it that he actually toured the world talking about spirituality. And at that stage, even senior people in the government and senior people in the church were were looking at these aspects as well. I guess the church people were trying to make the tie-in with where people were heading and what they did. And there are some links. Like, if anyone who knows anything about the church stuff, I'm not a huge expert on church because I'm not a religious person, but there's this phenomenon called speaking in tongues. Are you aware of that, Michael? You probably would.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of tongues was almost like a mediumship thing where they were listening and channeling words, but they would say it in some sort of snaky speak, some gobbledygook words, and then someone else would translate it. So the religious people were trying to tie the aspects of the more modern spirituality to their religious beliefs. So it was really, really well known and really sort of prominent back in those days. So, it's I guess it has its fits and starts, but it's really strong at the moment.
It really is. And what would you say to someone who maybe is just kind of discovering this world, whatever that might look like for the first time? Yes, obviously, I think the obvious answer is go to where you're guided. But what would you sort of say to someone who's still a bit lost and doesn't know where to find comfort?
Look, the comfort, I think, will come from looking into it's more than just picking up a set of cards and having to play with those. They're a tool that we use. I'd say get online. There is so much, and that's the problem with being online. There is so much information available. And get on there and just Google a few things. Like the last time we were on, I was saying, I wonder what the connection is with spirituality and top sports people. So,
and that's So on that, let's go into detail, because I don't think we went into detail, and if we do it too bad, we'll do it again. So what is that connection? How would you describe that, and what is it?
It seems to be a real key part in their ability to perform, because a lot of athletes, particularly the Americans, and I guess many of the Africans who are also, the African nations are also quite heavily Christian, thank God made me do this, and God made me win Academy Awards and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of athletes have rituals that they perform before a big race. I'm a swimmer, so I look at the swimming thing. But these rituals and symbols are spiritual symbols to them, and if they do this, then this is what they achieve. So it's like it could be anything from wearing, and this comes from an athlete that I knew, the same pair of underpants every time they ran, to the same pair of socks that were never washed because, we won something fabulous in the sock. And, it's all of their faith, all of these words and symbols.
It's so true, though. It's like, even if you watch, because I'm a big tennis player, so I've been watching the American Open at the moment. And if you ever watched a tennis match, not all, but the most top sort of, the top, say, 10 ranked tennis players, before they're about to serve or before they're about to receive a serve, they always do the same pose, whether it's kiss the bat or they kind of touch the ground or they touch something or they blow into or they bend down. Like, if you are paying attention, you'll notice, without even if they only have seconds before they receive a serve, they'll still squeeze in that little thing that they do, which goes on what you're talking about. Like
Rafa Nadal was notorious for it, wasn't he? He had a whole ritual that he used to go through.
Yeah, and I was trying to think of another name, a more modern name that that's the only reason why I remember, because I've noticed this particular. But I know Leighton Hewitt, like when he used to always, I think he touched his forehead or something. He always did one particular thing. And I just, yeah, just think what you were saying about, wearing the same thing or doing the same thing. It's, if you do pay attention, it is a ritual, and it is almost like you kind of can't help but wonder, are these people actually spiritual? But yet somehow they're doing this sort of ritual that if they don't do it, it's almost like I won't win. They may not even believe in the spirituality, which is quite interesting.
They probably wouldn't equate it to their spirituality, but in reality it is.
Yeah.
They're just doing this because this is what we made success, and I guess their prayers and their rituals, they tie this with victory, and that what they do actually helps them accomplish their sport. So they're really using a part of spirituality to not only reduce, I guess, anxiety and stress, but to see themselves as the champions that they are. So it's I guess serves several purposes for it, and it's really tied really strongly. Spirituality can be tied really strongly to psychology, and that is including the modern day and those things we were just talking about. And in fact, during the early history of the 20th century, there's some really interesting stuff going on with really notable psychologists. Like everyone would have heard, or psychologists and psychiatrists, everyone would have heard of Sigmund Freud, right?
Right, yeah.
He had one particular method, but there was another fellow by the name of Carl Jung. Have you ever heard of him?
I have, yes.
Jung was, I haven't had too much to drink, I swear. Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist, and he was a colleague of Freud's, and they couldn't have been more diverse in what they believed. But Jung was a really creative thinker, and he was really observant of world religions and mythologies and the dreams of his patients, and that's kind of what we're talking about with his sports, their dreams. And the overview there, I guess it was all the sort of human condition, but I mean, many of his books are way too difficult to sort of to get into it, I guess, at a light level like we are here. But the interesting thing there is that he was a huge proponent of tarot cards. Now, yeah, unbelievable. Not only just not even the traditional Rider-Waite sort of explanation of what a tarot card was, but he was really concerned with the symbologies attached to the tarot cards and what he called his archetypes. And it was what he believed was that looking at a card actually brought out these things in people that they would try and ignore. So if it's sitting there in front of them, this is what they've got to respond to. So he actually devised his own tarot cards, and that goes, we'll talk a bit about all our favourite tools and things that we use. So he devised his own tarot cards that were really important to him because of their symbology. His cards are quite different to a normal tarot card, but his belief in these were really strong because he thought that these were cards with cultural imprints, I guess, of images and ideas that have been built up over the centuries. So he's taking the historic sort of situation of cards and then sort of redefining them in his really modern sense. So in that, it's a cross-cultural sort of pollination. He's using history in a modern sense. Interesting. Some people may not believe in any of that.
No,
but
I know, and we'll talk a little bit about tools and how they've changed along the way and things like that. But if anyone does have any questions for Terri, if anyone's got any, I would love to know if anyone's got a ritual. I was trying to think as you were talking.
Yeah.
Is there something that I do every day, and if I don't do it, for God knows what reason, but I can't think of one, but I'm sure there's something that I do every day. So I'm wondering if anyone has a ritual or something that they do on a daily basis, not so much to represent success, unlike the sporting industry and these players do to win, although maybe you do to win at life. I don't know, there's something wrong with that as well. But I'm just wondering, put in the comments. Hi, Galen. Hi, Jane Brady, our CEO, who's also watching. Hi to Canada. I'm just catching up all the comments, who's jumping on. Hi, Andrea. So definitely do say hello. Definitely ask Terry a question. So we're not obviously doing psychic readings tonight. That is for Harry T on a Saturday night. But we are asking any sort of spiritual related type questions. If there's tools that you use that you want to talk about, if there's any rituals, I would love to know if anyone's got a ritual that they do the same thing every day. I really would love to know what that is and how it started. So if you're wanting to share that, do that in the thread. Do like and share this page if you can, so we can reach as many people as possible. So speaking of tools, and I say tools, like it's not just tarot, it's not just oracle cards, it's not just cards in general. People use crystals, people use other things. Scrying, thank you.
Yeah, writing,
I was just writing, yes, writing's a good
many
one.
things. And that's the thing that sort of harks back to what we were saying before. You know, it's about what you think you connect with. And if you don't know, then go and play with some of these things. You've got to try them on to see how they fit. Like
they do as well.
Some of my, the things that I do, my rituals, that if I'm doing stage work, I'll take my shoes off on stage because it's just,
okay.
No idea why. I just do it. And
when I suppose it's a grounding thing, though. You would to be more grounded.
Possibly, but that wasn't a conscious thought. That was just something. This is what I felt I needed to do. Yeah,
and you just started doing that naturally.
Yeah. And
that's right, because you used to. See if I can remember. Was it netball?
No, water polo.
Water polo. Okay, I would have never guessed that. Netball. Yeah. I remember. Actually, that makes sense. Yeah, I do remember that because of the Navy and the connection and everything that you have done. Yeah. Army, sorry. I'm getting it all wrong. I need to make notes, clearly.
Yes. No, I was a goalkeeper, and every single time I would have to touch the left top-hand corner, the right top-hand corner, and then go up and touch the crossbar in the centre, in that order, every single time before I started.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. I'm still trying to. I'm sure there's something I do. I'm going to think of it later, and I'm going to be like, oh, that's what I do. I'm such a routine person. If anything, that's probably what it is. But I don't think that's what we're kind of talking about. I'm just a typical Virgo where I just do the same thing at the same time every day. Like if you wanted to rob me, it'd be quite easy because you'll know exactly where I'm going to be at what time. I don't change.
Well, no, that does connect. I mean, that's a ritual, and that sort of goes down to the lack of stress and anxiety and performance, because what you're doing is your ritual that makes you perform, that allows you to get on with your day.
That's true. And if I did it in a different order, it does kind of throw me out for the day. You know, if I don't
particularly as you're a Virgo. Absolutely.
Yeah. Like I always sort of get up, check my phone, make a coffee, sit down, check my emails. But if I kind of check my emails without making the coffee first, it throws everything out. I know.
See, I'm a Scorpio. I'm happy with chaos theory. Just bring it on as it comes.
So as you're saying, yeah, obviously if someone's new to this or doesn't really sort of whatever sort of level journey that you're at and you're looking at using tools, as we've said, you know, do sort of what works for you. So what do you normally use? Like, what are your go-to tools?
Well, we briefly talked about this at one of our other gigs, but I tend to not use tarot cards as much because I once did. I do some corporate work as well, and I once did a gig, and one of the clients at that gig said complained to the company I was working for because it said she doesn't know what tarot cards mean. I know what they mean. Well, clearly she's got the little Rider-Waite book and saying this is what this card means. And you know, it doesn't, as you would know. And if anyone else out there hasn't actually experienced it, it's a holistic view. It's using what you're hearing plus the tools you have and reading them together as a story, not as isolated cards. So I use them, but in conjunction with other cards. I particularly like, my favorite cards are my Lenormand cards, which there's my sorry, I just moved my computer again.
You've got mail.
Which we've talked about before. And they're little, I think they're little butt kickers because they there's only 36 of them and they cut straight to the point. And you can get very modern sets like this and you can get very old-fashioned sets, but I really like those. But I use them in conjunction with some tarot cards, and I like these very large format ones because I really love the symbology, like the Jungian stuff. I really like the symbology of the card rather than what its actual meaning is according to somebody else, because these cards are hundreds of years old. So as the other things were saying, there's hundreds of years of, I guess, people sort of adding to these things and drawing them. So, like, for example, here, the High Priestess, she has her meanings, but this card I find really powerful because, rather than just seeing her sitting there, she's got those pillars of strength on either side. Now, not many would notice that or know that the pillars, the black and the white pillars, have letters on them, and unfortunately placed for our modern times, but the B and the J, which
of course your head goes that way, so does mine.
Well, anyone looks at it and goes, "What's that?" And I'm, well, it's actually Boaz and Joaquin, which is night and dark, light and day, balance and imbalance. So I find these aspects of the cards really interesting to talk about, rather than that's what this card means. And interestingly, she's in some of the cards you see, her gown actually turns into water. So she to me is the sacred power of the woman. She attracts the tides. She wears a crown of the phases of the moon. So it's really saying that this is the woman that drags this stuff in, that makes the balance. So the flow's the water of life. And
that's just one good example of one card. I mean, at the end of the day, any sort of tarot, even oracle cards. And I think what's important to note that a lot of people, and I was the same when I first started out, you kind of, when you're doing sort of the reading, you're kind of reading the meaning of the card and that's it. It ends there. But it's almost like, it's an extension of you in a sense. So the card will kind of give you sort of an extension of what potentially you're already getting or picking up on anyway. And you can challenge the meaning too. Like, I sometimes get a card, the card says X, Y, and Z, but I'm like, you know what? To me though, this applies to you in this way, and that same card's going to apply differently to that person, but that card's going to still have that one same meaning. And I think not get caught up in the meaning of it.
Exactly. The visual stuff is so important. Like, sometimes this card will come up and I'll just say, this is great for you to actually attract the things that you want and to grow something, because behind her, she has a tapestry, and the tapestry has pomegranates on it. And from a biblical perspective, pomegranates are the seeds of life. So not only are we talking about her controlling the tides and like menstrual cycles, we're talking about the real seeds of life and her being able to grow them. And as a spiritual person, this is the real strong connection in this particular card. So it's fascinating. They're fascinating.
I love that. Jane, our CEO, has said her spiritual, where did that go? Her ritual is to start off on a positive note each day. I think positive thoughts and only think positive things first thing each morning. I think we all should really be doing that every morning to start off our day. Joyce has said, hi Joyce, good to see you with us. I take an affirmation card every morning, then burn oils to increase, then shuffle tarot cards for the day, and I do this every day. See, I don't have time for all that. That'll just be too much for me. But I love that you do all that. And you do what works for you, I do need to get into more affirmations or positive thinking. Like, I sort of need to wake up. And I did it today for the first time. Someone, one of our other Psyche TV readers, sent me a I don't know what you would call it, like a not a song, but like a tune that you can play. What do you call those things? Like a spiritual kind of awakening type sound that you can play. I'm trying to think of the words.
You'll get there eventually.
You'll get there. One of them was like a third eye kind of protection, like from psychic attacks kind of thing. One of them's like just a sound healing kind of thing. So I'm trying to forcing myself to play one of those when I first wake up, to kind of just get that vibe going. for the day.
It's funny, isn't it? Again, mine's chaos theory. It's if I get time to look at something in the morning, and generally I don't, but I have my beliefs that I've got someone out there protecting me. So for me, when it happens, it happens. It comes along. I don't go seeking it, or I mean, probably wouldn't hurt me to do a bit of positive visualization, but yeah, it don't happen.
People are loving tonight's episode. Yeah, I know. Trust me, there's a lot of things I should be doing. Beth has said every reader is different and they can pick something up from another reader. Doesn't mean they don't know what they are doing. They're just guidings and this is interesting, and I kind of want to challenge you, Beth, on this one a little bit in a loving, light way. But she says, don't get me wrong, there are ones that read just from the booklet because maybe they are just learning or finding it hard to connect or not trusting what is being told. I totally understand that. Nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah. You got to start somewhere.
You do. And I think it's important to know the meaning of what that card is anyway, because it does kind of help as well. But I always sort of say it's great to do that and definitely go for it. But I would sort of say don't get stuck in just that meaning alone. Find your own meaning as well over time. And that comes with confidence and practice. But I always find once you understand what that meaning of that one card is, don't be afraid to challenge it a little bit and kind of how you feel and look at it. Like when you look at the card, when I had my mentor, the biggest thing he said to me was step inside the card. So look at the card and imagine you're stepping inside it. And what do you see around? What's the 3D version of that card that you're not seeing in front of you on the 2D? And get a feel of where are you? What else are you seeing that other people can't see? And start to get your own sort of meaning from that,
Yeah. I mean, another thing I like to do, and, I guess it doesn't, but look, a lot of people do, but particularly as a professional or semi-professional doing this, we love the cards. We love them. We want every obscure set of card we can find.
Well, speaking of which, show the new ones that you just got, because I love them.
I've got a couple of different things I'd like to show you. Sometimes to get out of my own headspace, I've got an old set or a new set of French cards, and they have the very old French symbology and pictures on them. And so it really changes the way you look at a card because, as I said, with the Rider-Waite style, there we are. That's a particular look, but then you get these other things going on that are just fascinating. And so you can see, like, these may be 150 years old, the symbology of those. So you can almost see what they were thinking back in their day and how their cards were represented. But and people are always bringing out new things. So I was saying to Michael before, I picked some cards up recently, and they are, I have to hold them up on a white piece of paper here, they're transparent. So you can read them as you would a normal tarot card, but they're meant to be readed a few at a time. So you can see through them and see how they actually interact with each other. And then that's a whole other story. So there's all of this stuff you can play with that makes you look at them from a different perspective. These ones I haven't had a chance to play with yet, but I'm very keen to do so.
I love the idea that of the overlaying stuff, like how you can read it as like a single card. I'm assuming like you can read it as a single card, but then you can add. And does it matter what card? It can be any card that you can just add over.
Any card, and you know what? You don't have to. You don't have to read what the card is. When they're overlaid, you look at the visual message that you're getting from them, and it's a completely different story. So you might say to someone, pick 3 cards and just wrap them together, and then you look at the visual of what you're getting there, and it will be completely different to what the cards would mean on their own. So those 3 together, they kind of look like Charlie's Angels, don't they?
Yeah, they do. So that's 3 cards.
Yeah, that's 3 cards there together. So
wow.
So see 3 separate. Come on. Look, my genie's bottle is interfering here. So that's 3 cards, and when you stack them together, you can see that, look, it looks like there's a target in the center. What are they fighting for? What are they trying to get to? You see they're interacting and they're back to back. So is this someone supporting you towards a new goal? And there in the center is like a magician, and he's going to grant your wish when they get together. So really fascinating stuff like that.
I love those cards. I love those cards. And I saw online, probably just one of those like Facebook ads or whatever, and there's this deck that's come out. I don't know how old or new, or I've just seen it for the first time, but the card is transparent, so it actually, that reflective. So when you move the card, the image changes.
Seen those ones too.
Have you seen those?
Yeah,
they look
I'd
pretty
like
cool.
To those too.
Yeah, they're a little pricey than I thought they were, so I'm hunting around to see if I can find a cheaper version. But yeah,
I like help ourselves.
Yeah, but I thought, how cool! Like the actual image can physically change as you move.
Yeah, if you look at it from one light, it's got one. It's like those magic, picture things.
Yeah.
You look at it from one eye angle, and then from another angle, it's something different. So yeah, they're fantastic. But I've also got these really interesting ones, and these are Russian cards. These are sort of a Russian, I guess, folk card, but it's a Russian gypsy fortune telling cards. And they're all they don't look like a traditional card of any sense, but they've got four sections in them, and you lay the cards out, and dependent on where the cards are sitting, they and the corners might marry together with the other half on another card.
Oh, okay.
So whatever you've got that's marrying in that particular line is the story that's being told for you. So this is what we were saying before about you don't know what you want to do, or you don't know which thing you love. I mean, gypsy fortune telling, traditional tarot cards, modern tarot cards, Jungian tarot cards. You see something different in every single one of them.
And I think too, also important, cards might not be at all for you at all.
Absolutely.
You could be doing tea leaves to beer readings to as you said, scrying to crystal readings. Hi, Anne-Marie. Feel free to jump on and help out in production if you want. No, I'm joking. It's you've got to find what works for you. And I think don't get too frustrated at yourself while you're trying to work it out, because, it took me a little bit of time. I mean, Terri is completely out for me. I tried and I kept forcing it because I was thought, as a younger sort of psychic, palm reading too, Beth. Thank you, of course. Forgot about that one.
Of course.
Before I kind of knew and got more experience and learned that, hey, I can actually make my own choices, believe it or not. Yeah. I was just so convinced that, if you're a psychic, you have to read tarot, because if you don't know how to read tarot, you're not a proper psychic.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was such a big believer on that, you know, and that really slowed the process down for me, because I was forcing, and it didn't matter how many mentors and books and whatever. I still to this day could not tell you anything about. All I can tell you is that I think Pentacles is money. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all I remember.
Cups are all about emotions. Wands, to me, wands are like walking sticks. They're about progress, So, and swords are cutting tools for me. So there's a tough decision that's got to be made. So there's so much fascinating stuff. And even like if people are going, gee, what's my thing? I don't know if I've got a thing. Listen to your gut, because the stuff didn't come on to me until I was 53. I'm 52. I'm 65 in a couple of weeks. Holy hell! But it was like when it arrives for you, it arrives for you. But even before that, I knew that I could read energy in people. So that's another thing that's really interesting. You get that gut feeling, go, oh yeah. Not sure. There's something that's just not right there. It's just trust that, it's
trust that.
And healing, all those kinds of things.
And practice on your friends and family. That's what they're there for.
Yeah. But there's even things like, these are different cards here again. Gosh, where's my bloody piece of
your whiteboard?
Yeah, my whiteboard. It's the wrapper from the dog food that we use. But it's the only white bit of stuff I had handy. But see, these are prism oracles, and they honestly, I'll have to take my
see-through
genie
cards.
bottle away next time. And they'll give you a color. And, what color are you relating to there? Or when you draw one of these, it's what color does this mean to me? Like the orange cards are full of energy, so there's things like that. And there's gray cards, and people go, oh, I've got a gray card. But the gray cards are like ghosts. You can fill them with any energy that you want. So it's saying to you, what am I missing that I can fill into this spot? So there's so much out there to play with, really.
How many deck of cards do you own, Terri?
That's not important. I do like to pick sets up when I travel, though. And earlier in the year, do
you find like you have your favorites, or like if you were traveling and you had to pick, like do you spend all day going, okay, which ones am I going to pick? Like
when I go out for a job, I've got 8 different sets that I take with me, and it all depends what one I'm feeling the love for.
So you've got more cards in your suitcase than clothing.
Yes. I've got I don't even want to tell you how many shelves I've got in my bookcase that are full of them. But,
I love it. I'm like that with wow, okay, yeah. No, I was going to say I'm a book person, so I can't go past a bookshop without walking in and buying the book. So you'd probably be the same with if you see a deck of cards, you'll just be like, you don't even think, you're just like, oh, I'll probably never use it, but I have to like buy it.
And sometimes you're led to them, right? Sometimes it is you're put in a spot because that's where you need to be, because you need to see this card, or you need to have this. You don't need, but you might need to be. I have the same thing with books. I love a book, and a few years ago, I have a military hero of mine who was the governor of New South Wales, called Sir Roden Cutler. He was a Victoria Cross winner, a very, very brave man, and a wonderful statesman. And he was always a hero of mine. And then one day, I was up at Rozelle Markets. I live in Balmain, for anyone who knows Sydney. But I saw an old a book stand, and I thought, I've got to go over there. And I went over there, and I saw that there was a biography written on him by Colleen McCulloch, who's also one of my favourite authors. And she didn't write many biographies, but I thought, I've got to take this book. So I grabbed it, went home, and when I got home, I thought, okay, I'll sit down and have a read. I opened it up, and it had been written in by Sir Roden to a friend of his, and it had been given to the friend. So I have this copy of this book that it was meant to be me.
And was that in a bookshop?
No, it was at a local market on the junk store.
Ah.
Yeah. It cost me $5. And I cried with joy when I found it. It was just like, that was where I meant to have that book. Or, sometimes they'll throw a set of cards in front of you, and it's like, those really resonate.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to get them, but I'm just trying to be flexible here, because I'm not that flexible. But yeah, anyway, I got them. So I've got these cards that I use, which is funny enough. Doreen Virtue wrote these, and these were her last deck before she completely turned, which is quite an interesting topic as well. She's gone from spirituality to now against it. In a sense.
I had no idea about that.
She's I don't know the full story, but she's full Christian now. Oh, God doesn't, yet has so many decks of she's gone the other way.
She was really prolific, yeah.
Yeah. And it's quite shocking that she's gone the other way completely. But I love her cards. And these actually, I've had these now. I mean, you probably can't tell in the picture here, but they're
pretty beaten up. Oh, I have that set too. I love those.
Yeah. So these actually fell on my feet. I can't remember what shop I was in. And it wasn't even a spiritual shop, but I think everyone has these cards. I think these are the ones like most popular cards. Everyone's saying I've got them. Everyone's got these cards. I use them for everything. And these are my only cards. I don't have any other deck.
All right.
Yeah,
see, I'm really attracted to color too. So I have these ones. These are my favorite oracle cards because they're red, and I love red. And these are called the Wisdom of the Oracle, and that's by a lady by the name of Colette Barron Reed, and she's also really prolific. But visually, I find her cards just beautiful. She's upside down. Sorry about that. But they, and when people see them, they can really relate to them, like the power in this yang card, like, you know, yin and yang. And that's interesting too, because in literal terms, yin, the yin of yin and yang is the womb. It's the receptacle. So it's about fertility. It's about pulling all the information into the bowl, into the receptacle. And the yang card, like that is showing, is explosive. It's about the penis, and it's about thrusting forward. So you get the marriage of both sort of sexes, and the symbology of those as well. So there's so much fascinating stuff in cards.
Galen's actually asked a random good question. What is an actual spiritual awakening?
You know, to me, and this is the thing, everybody's is different. Everybody's is different, and you may not have had it yet. But as I said, with me, it was I was 53 when it really hit me. And to me, I was going through probably the worst time of my life. And I had someone say to me, someone who'd just come into my life, you know, people come in for a season or a reason or whatever, and had said to me, oh, look, go and see this medium. So I went and saw her, and she said to me, hey, you're really strong in this. Come along to the training session I'm running next week. And I did that. And by the end of the day, I was standing on the stage reading the crowd. So that was it. The door was just completely opened, and through I went and never looked back. So it'll happen to someone else in a different way. You say you're attracted to the sound baths and things like that.
Speaking of sound, I can, yeah.
See, that does nothing for me. I get, oh, will you stop singing those bloody bowls, you know, and ringing the bell? That drives me insane.
It's like, I'll wring your neck. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I love.
So what was your awakening?
Mine. You know what? That's a really good. Probably hasn't. I probably had. That's a really good. My awakening, I suppose. For me, it's so cliche. I kind of probably had two awakenings in a sense that I had a traumatic event, I think, which we all kind of have to go through.
See, interesting, isn't it, that mine was from a traumatic event, and as was yours?
Well, every sort of psychic at this stage, I've been doing this show now for, I can't even do the maths to work it out, but I started in April. So, you know, it's been a couple of months now. And every sort of psychic I've interviewed at this stage, I reckon 98% of them, if not all, have said something traumatic happened and that led them to. But it's almost like what we're saying at the start about a pandemic, you know, and then a pandemic happened and then a collective all went to the spiritual side.
All these things are tied, and it's the same pattern over and over. You know, I know that I have, my great granny was a medium, and she was a huge spiritualist and was weirdly involved in the spiritual church, and actually ran a spiritual church for about 50 years. But she was actually involved in the church when Arthur Conan Doyle came out to Australia and actually gave a talk at that church. So it's weird how now I'm studying this and I'm finding other connections with that. So,
but I think what I love with your story though, and if people want to go back, you'll have to scroll quite a bit on the page, but if they can go back and just watch your first interview, it's such a fascinating interview because you've gone through so much in your life already. And what I love about your story in particular is, you know, as you said, you sort of developed the, well, I believe you always had the gift as such, but the fact that you said, you know, you're in your early 50s when you started doing this professionally, so to speak.
Yeah.
But there's so much knowledge and so much, like, all the cards you have, all the like knowledge that you have. It's like you'd think you've been doing this forever, you know.
Well, you never stop learning. You never stop learning with it. And now I realized that I was always able to read people. So I always read energy fields, but I didn't know that was what I was doing. And that's what I'm saying to people out there. You might have no idea what your strength is, but when you think about it, it's like, do I do this? You know, do I hear things that make me go, do I walk to the phone and pick up the phone to call my buddy and she's ringing me? You know, there's all these little signs that we don't realize are signs, but they will keep coming back to us until I just said after that event, I said, how many times do I need to be kicked in the ass by the universe to tell me that this is what I'm supposed to be doing? And so, hopefully people will actually get that and
that's
some
kind
of the
of,
signs.
yeah. And I suppose that's what's kind of happened for me. I need to get like Harry or yourself or someone to actually interview me, because I need to be interviewed. No one's actually done an interview on me. Because I'm a big believer that at this stage, I'm firstborn psychic generation. I've got nothing in my family. I've done research. I've spoken to both sides in the living. And in the spiritual, and there's no gift there. No one's talked about it. There's no psychic ability. There's no mediumship. There's no one's ever practiced it. Like, there's no history of it.
Sometimes you just don't know. I mean, I only found out a couple of years ago how strong my great granny was. I mean, when we were kids, she used to take us to cemeteries to talk to the inhabitants out there, and we didn't think that was weird because that's what we did with Granny. She also used to like to go to the wrestling too, but that's a whole other story. but only I think it was about 8 years ago. I've written a book, and the book was because I had some psychic messages came to me. My father was in a ship that sank when I was 6, so I knew 5, so I knew nothing about it. But it all started coming together for me. And it was really interesting when I got the transcript of the Maritime Inquiry. It said Fairbairn had premonitions that the ship was going to sink. So I hadn't realised that, because my father has passed, he's been dead for 50 years, that it came from that side of the family as well. So sometimes you just don't know.
And possibly, and there could even be denial in there as well as a factor. Like, the grandparents probably, I mean, I come from an Italian background, so, gypsies and all that kind of was real taboo and real, against. But yeah, I just haven't traced anyone yet. And it's just really, really kind of fascinating. But you asked about my awakening. And for me, I think, I just remember I remember as a kid speaking to spirit, and then kind of going through teenage life, kind of disconnecting from that. But then just shows like Charmed really, and those sort of, The Craft and those sort of like Practical Magic and those type films and those sort of witchy type shows on TV at the time when it was a bit more sort of taboo at the stage. I just enjoyed them way too much. Like, I found it almost like a real personal connection when I watched those shows, as opposed to just enjoying the magic of it. I just found like this makes sense to me. And that's when I sort of started to explore. And for a while I practiced witchcraft. I was a Wiccan for a while because I thought that's what I was. Maybe I'm a witch, and learned about spell casting and opening the circles and calling the corners, and really threw myself into it like heavily. Which we kind of do a lot with, psychic kind of, there's a crossover there with, all that kind of stuff. And with like protection, for example, and grounding, what you learn in as a witch, you do as a psychic. It's like, it's the same tools and rituals. They kind of cross over, which is quite fascinating.
That's the other thing about the history of spirituality. There's so much cross-pollination, I mean, people who were probably psychics back in the day were I guess hung as witches or burned at the stake, or anyone who was a little bit different, was also seen as like somebody who had, these strange gifts and should be ostracized and things like that. So it's like all of this stuff over the centuries sort of come together. It's like what we were saying about the cards and things. All these things pull together, and we take bits out of things and relate them to other bits. So like, I believe in the energy, and I loved what the Wiccans did with sweeping the bad energy out of the house and sweeping the good energy in. So it's like you can, and there's no rules. You can believe in that piece of it and then believe in something else as well. So it's you finding your little own pathway. And it's what I love about this stuff is that every single one of us is completely and utterly different. There's no one person or cookie cutter that everybody follows. It's you pull together your own story. It's like, for me, it's like when I do the stage stuff, it's like talking to spirit. It's like Okay, how do I feel them? How do I see them? You develop your own language. And I guess that's really what we're talking about here. What do you get? What do you feel from these things? How do you bring it together? How can you make sense of it in your life?
Exactly. And yeah, perfectly said. There's nothing to really kind of add to that. That is actually, because I was going to ask, what's one thing you can leave, because we're about to wrap up now, what's one thing that you can leave everyone on? But I think that's,
try it on to see how it fits. Try everything on to see how it fits. I tried the whole Reiki thing and the healing thing, hated it, hate doing it, even though people would say I could feel your energy was really strong. I'm like, yeah, and I'm just moving my hands around, it's not for me.
Just, I could be doing better things. Like, really?
So find your own bliss, everyone. Look.
I love that. Thank you so much. I do truly appreciate you coming on tonight.
My pleasure.
I always learn something new from you. And if it's not something new, it's definitely a laugh. And I love just the energy. And
thank you.
Yeah, you can go back and read the comments. I haven't had a chance to read out everyone's, but people have been really loving and resonating with what you're saying as always. And yeah, just go and try it on. And just find you, there's, probably a base, I don't want to say rule, but like a base that you can read to learn from, but then make it your own.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon.
Don't forget Saturday night, if people want to ask me questions, formulate a question.
You're on this Saturday. On Saturday
night.
Thank you.
So, get in there and with Harry and I and ask away. Ask all those things that have been bugging you or that you don't understand, or even if you just what's happening to me in the next sort of 6 months. Anything.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so you can see Terri. So yes, you get the beautiful opportunity to see Terri again. So she's on this Saturday at 8 p.m. with Harry T for a psychic reading. So make sure you jump on and do that. So you are spoiled this week, definitely.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Terri. I'll see you soon.
Thanks, everyone. More jazz hands. Thanks, everyone.
More jazz hands. Bye. Thank you to everyone that has tuned in tonight. Of course, you can go to psychictvinternational.com for a psychic reading right now with one of our psychics who has logged on. We currently have the amazing Grace on 9888. Blessed Beth, who's been watching tonight. Hi, Beth. Shout out to you. 9150 is your pin. Judith Sky, who's now come off a phone call. She was on a phone call before. Her pin is, she's now available on 9125. Judith isn't available often, so you jump on the phones and grab her. Mystical L available on 9151. Natalie Norm Baker on pin 9810. I am back next week with a guest. I think it's the Mermaid Medium I have on next week. So I'm back at the same time next week at 8 o'clock. Thank you for having your company tonight. Thank you for everyone who has jumped on tonight. As you can tell, my brain's just given up. So that's my cue to go before I embarrass myself anymore. Thank you for jumping on. I will see you next week with the Mermaid Medium. And you've been watching Psychic TV. And remember, try it on.